Alright everybody, what's up? It's your boy CR-Volcanic coming back at you live with a really stupid idea. Okay, so there's a new update out. Oh, why? Why would you, I don't want to, fine. So there's a new update out, and we're gonna do something interesting. We're gonna play the update while we talk about the update. Doesn't that sound like an awesome idea? I thought so too. So we got a whole bunch of new stuff, and we got it early. We got the 9 stars and their RNG talismans added in the game. Fuck. Yeah, I bet you think, yeah, you stupid game. Great, what an awesome start. Good job, Connor. You know, I'll let you in on a little secret. This isn't even the first time I recorded this. I already recorded this whole thing once, but OBS didn't pick up my microphone. So Connor's having a really good day right now. Fuck you. But yeah, alright, so let's actually talk about what we got. First of all, we got it much earlier than we thought we were going to get it. And I think this is definitely, how the hell? This is definitely something on the developers' end to try and just maintain player engagement for a little bit. And honestly, I don't think it's really all that much of a bad idea. So this was going to be dedicated to U3 stuff. But instead they're like, well, there's going to be a nice big gap of content kind of drying out between 2 coming out and 3 coming out. And we had like A2 Youth doing it and whatnot. Like, alright, we need some more stuff to kind of just tide people over. So this is what they went with. And honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I think what this does is it kind of just lets this sit by itself and be grinded by itself without the pressure of a new monster or any new mechanics like that or any updates on top of that. You just kind of let this rock out by itself, be its own thing, and exist in like its own little time frame and still be played with as things go on. So how good are the 9 stars and the talismans? We'll start with the 9 stars first, as we are fighting them currently. Thank you, Dune, for saving my life. Me when I've only read one sci-fi novel in my entire life. Okay, so right. I think the 9 stars are a lot of fun. I think these are generally really good challenges for the game. And I know there's a couple of psychos out there that are just like, dude, they're not even that hard. They're good. Like, I don't think we need 10 stars in the game at all. They're not the most challenging thing ever, but it's been a little while since I really felt like some good fear and satisfaction out of a Monster Hunter fight quite like this. I'm playing like I'm playing with close range coatings. Forgot that I had Pierce on this set. I should probably be able to get him out if I just jump this, because the nice thing with Pierce coatings is... Oh yeah, I didn't land. Right, so I think these guys are a blast. Because they're dangerous. You know, I'm not someone who, like, needs Monster Hunter to be, like, the hardest thing ever. But I do appreciate the challenge aspect of it. I do still think it's fun. So as much as, like, yeah, sometimes it's nice to have something a little bit more lax, like the 7s or something like that. That the game can go to this level is pretty nice. And I'm happy to have a challenge of this level in there. I think they're particularly exhilarating. And even more interesting on top of that is how exactly they tweak them around. They're not just a raw number change. On top of the fact that they do have more health and they do have more damage, the other thing is, what you can probably notice by the fact that I got a wound so early, is that their wound buildup is a little bit more generous than it is with the 8. So they actually toned down wound resistance a little bit here and there. At the same time, other things like, I believe, status buildup and things like trap buildup are toned down a little bit. And boom. It's interesting that they keep kind of balancing around and tweaking and mismatching how they want the wound buildup to work. And I think we're getting to a point where it's not a lack of knowledge of how the mechanic works and it's indecision. I think they actually have, at this point, a half-decent understanding of the actual mechanic and how they want to be balancing it numerically and all that kind of stuff. Because they're using it to create slightly, subtly different difficulty experiences. Where you have the much stronger, much scarier, much more intense 9s, but you can stagger trip them with the wounds quite a bit easier. Then you have the less tanky, slightly less scary 8s, but these guys are a little bit more rock solid. They're a little bit harder to flinch drag around like that. And I think that's interesting. And we're getting to the point where the developers, I feel like, are much more comfortable with how precisely the wounds work. And we're getting to a point where they are rectifying some of the casualizing issues that their new mechanics have brought to the table far faster than they have done with a lot of the previous games. Like, with Rise specifically, there really wasn't much wire bug compensation until either, like, the very, very end with some of the advanced quests and, say, like, Crimson Glow, or until you get to Sunbreak and they get to do, like, universal speed increases for the entire cast so they could adequately keep up. And Sunbreak made a lot of the cast a lot more fun than they were in Rise because of that speed boost. And then you have other things like with, I think, Iceborne specifically. Like, the Temporal Mantle was just, like, crazy good forever. The only time they ever really rectified the Temporal Mantle was, like, Alatreon and Akhti Velk because they had to just chip the fuck out of the Temporal. And then you also had stuff like the Clutch Claw is just kind of oppressive and annoyingly designed forever. You know, as much as I do like Iceborne, unless you mod the game, there's stuff about how the Clutch Claw works that are just going to be kind of obnoxious until the end of time. With this game, I really don't envy the developers, and I kind of admire them for the expediency at which they have worked to try and rectify some of the overpowered nature of some of their mechanics and gimmicks, and how there really has been some casualization, especially with the launch of Wilds. And we've gotten to the point where they've managed to transform it into probably one of the single most challenging high ranks that they've ever created, which I think is another thing that some people do forget, is that this is high rank. And I think some people are very much comparing their experiences in Wilds to their experiences with Iceborne and Sunbreak, which is not fair to this game, honestly. At the same time, though, it has added a lot of dimension and put just a lot of work into Wilds to make it probably one of the most challenging, one of the most thorough, and one of the most complex high ranks that they've ever made. And for the most part, I'd say it's created a very fun experience. Like I was saying, I think the 9s are a lot of fun. I think we can have an honest conversation at some point if they are stacked up a little bit higher than they necessarily need to be. I think if someone really wanted to do some good number comparison, running speed run times against 9 stars versus world tempered high ranks versus Iceborne master rank tempereds versus special investigation anomalies versus like Apex, like, what is it? Frenzied Apexes in 4U or something like that, and just like run some number crunching of one batch against one another and see if the 9 stars are actually legitimately number crunched or or like legitimately a little bloated, or they just kind of feel like it. I feel like that's a conversation we can actually have. But for the most part, I think that the volumes of health that these guys have and the high damage that they have creates an experience that really motivates me to get better at the game. Because the longer it's alive, the higher of a chance it has to kill you. And it's pretty good at killing you just because of how strong it is. I'm nervous about the Soregios in the room now. So, you want to be getting good at its moveset. You want to be getting good at your weapon's moveset. You want to know what your weapon can actually do. You want to be good at your actual set building so that you can actually get these guys down in a reasonable sense of time before they can put you in the ground and you don't get your rewards, right? So there is some legitimate... Oh my god, he got sniped! Good god! That was cool. So there is some legitimate motivation to get really good at these games, or to get good at this game in particular, that the 9 stars do create because of their really high statistics. And there is a level of fear and exhilaration and motivation that even other Monster Hunter games that I really like kind of struggle to put out because of how the numbers are balanced in this game. There we go. All right, it's a little earlier than I think it is sometimes. Thank you, session connectivity. Very cool. That's one thing. That's game's still a little unstable. I know it's getting better, but that's still not great. I do think it's cool that we can get an experience of this level out of high rank. And it doesn't, I don't know. I wouldn't say it feels like unfair or anything. It's just really high level. And one other thing I definitely want to say, I do think that if Wilds came out like yesterday in the state that it is in currently, I am generally of the opinion that I think people would really like the 9s and the 8s. That this conversation about artificial difficulty, too difficult, what's the word that's going around now that I also don't like? Difficulty fetishists are ruining the game, blah, 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 blah. I feel like if this was just the thing at launch, people would really like them. Because they are legitimately really fun. And it just kind of further cements me on this agenda that I have, that I think that the term artificial difficulty is an unserious, doo-doo, stupid, loser baby word that people who want to take themselves seriously shouldn't use. I have only ever heard the term artificial difficulty when it's applied to things like updates and whatnot, of just, oh, they added more numbers to the game. I don't think I've ever heard that word or that term or that phrase be used in a way that sounded like in any way intelligent. It is such a nothing bullshit. I hate the term artificial difficulty so much. I think if the 9 stars were just in the base game, like you would just fight them as is. You know, you start off and it's like this piddly little baby difficulty, especially with a low rank story. Whatever. But then you keep going and you keep going, and then you hit the 7 stars. Like, oh man, okay, the 7 stars can, like, I might get carded here or there. That's something. Whatever. And you hit the 8s, like, ooh, alright, the 8s are kind of interesting. Like, they toned down how sturdy they are in some cases. And they can hit pretty hard. They're pretty chunky, too. Like, that's it. Okay, this is fun. And then you get to the 9s, and like, oh, damn, alright, well, this is the part where the game is, like, legitimately challenging, and you have this kind of curve where the game goes from like probably one of the easiest Monster Hunter games they've ever made to one of the most difficult high rank experiences they've ever made over the course of one singular game. I think that's I think that's a really kind of interesting path for this game to take, and if you're going at it gradually, I think from a start experience all the way to this point, like again, if you were to buy the game yesterday or if it came out yesterday, I think you would probably enjoy that difficulty curve for the most part. Because it does, because, like, high rank is a decent little step up from low, and then once you hit, again, like, 7's not that much harder than untempered monsters. Nice. Alright, I was able to kill a 9-star while just blabbing. I kind of shut up at the end, though, to focus up, because I think I don't know. Am I satisfied with my rant on the term artificial difficulty and then how it's not a real word or term or phrase or anything, and people just throw it around, but it doesn't actually mean anything? Maybe. I don't know. I'm willing to stand on that, though. If you want to take yourself seriously as a human being, stop saying the term artificial difficulty. It's literally, if the game just came out like this, what is actually artificial? It was just how it was made. Like, there's such this weird perception, like, oh god. If the game just came out like this, then there would, of course it's artificial, it's fucking programming. Okay, I wasn't done with this. I still have a, oh my god. This is such stupid. Protective polish and flip, alright. What else did I get? Artillery, thunder attack, and part, alright, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. And ooh, okay, that's good. That's just good. We talk about the charm system, I suppose. Then evade. Oh, dude, evade window and ballista. Oh, That's not bad. That's not bad either. That's on a 6. That's not bad either. You want to talk about? I don't know. I might be done. I think I've proven my point. Don't use the term artificial difficulty. I don't like it. It's stupid and it's not a real argument. You only apply it when it goes to updates or things that go post-launch or, like, attempts to make the game more difficult in a post-patch type of thing. But if they were there at launch, you wouldn't have anything to fucking say about it. It would have just been how the game was designed. And I see through that fucking disguise. It's a heap of crap. Okay, hi, this is Editing Connor. I'm just going to add on to this real quick. One other thing. You might go into the comments and say that, well, artificial difficulty might be a thing even if it isn't post-patch because, you know, what if you're just playing the game normally as it is on launch and it comes out with, like, really inflated values and all that kind of stuff and bad numbers and blah, 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 and it's artificial difficulty from the get-go. Well, you know what? We had a term for that. It's just called bad game design, and that term was fine for a very long time. And you know, if we want to say that the 9-stars are just badly designed, or anything else made in a post-patch in anything is badly designed, we can have that conversation. Sure, that's perfectly fine. Artificial difficulty, it's not real. Stop using it. Okay, back to the video. Oh, the bounties are what give you the silver melt. Silver relic. Silver relic is what? Silver talisman. Okay, that's not the 9-star. Gotcha. That's how you get them. Also, the lady's singing at me. That's nice. I guess while we're in crash out mode, while Connor's yelling about things he doesn't like, I gotta fucking show you something. I'll show you a couple of screenshots and I'll show you my actual quest list. I was nervous when this update was coming out because there was a graphic that went around that said the monster roster of Monster Hunter Wilds versus the Monster Hunter Wilds roster according to Yuya Tokida or whatever. I fucking hate that graphic so goddamn much because yeah, it's just the apex. It's the ones that were 8 stars are the ones that are going to 9 stars. And sure, you know what? All right. I would like maybe some 8-star buffs for some of the tier 2s and the tier 1s. We might even be getting that because of what we saw of that Gravios event quest thing in the listing with them being like 8-star Gravios. We might actually be getting that. Do I want some universal buffs for some of like the lower level stuff? Sure. I think that could be fun because there's some really good fights that just get trounced by how the wound system works. And if that got removed off of those guys, that would be really nice. I would enjoy that. Yes. At the same time though, I was nervous because that graphic went up and I saw a couple of quests floating around of like double 9-star monsters, and I went, oh no, did they change this thing that I really liked that I made a video about a couple of weeks ago, where you could have tier 2s and tier 1s in your 8-star quests, and they could boost the reward pools. I'm like, oh, did they take that out? That would be a huge L for this game, because I think it's one of the things that the game does really well, is it actually has mechanical incentives to fight the entire roster. And then I saw that graphic floating around, I'm like, oh no, they did ruin it. And then I actually booted up the game, and I played it for myself. And I'll put some screenshots that I took on the screen right now. Some of those people, whoever made that graphic, I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get angry again. No, I got myself angry again. I'm not even playing this up for the cameras. I'm pissed. Some of you don't know how the fucking game works. Some of you do not know just how the mechanics of the game works. You can still get, off of the tier 1s and the tier... I haven't seen the tier 1s and the 9s yet, but you can get the tier 2s, and there's a lot of tier 2s. You can get those in the 9-star quests. And once again, just like the 8 stars, they don't add their own rewards into the pool, they expand on the 9 pool. So right here, right up at the very top, look at what we got. There's a 9x5 Legiacris, right there. He's got a whole bunch of rewards. I think that's like 9 right there. I think if you add a 7x4 Dosha, that bulks us up to, I think, like a 10, which isn't huge, but I did have one where I got, like, I had a Seregios one right here, right before this raid out one that I've used all my uses on, but it was like 3 off of a normal Seregios, and this one boosted up to like 9 or like 10 or 11 by adding a 7x4 Guardian Dosha. There's some people that just don't know how the fucking game works, dude. They just don't know how the game works. Because, okay, not only, right, not only do you get to have the mid-level monsters in top-level quests, right? So they do exist in the top-level quests. Not only that, but they expand the top-level reward pools of the top-level quests without adding their own rewards into the pool. They just give you more stuff. Not only that, but with the way that multi-monster quest works, I'm tripping over my own words because I'm pissed out of my fucking mind, is they make the 9-star monster weaker by just health cut distribution. Yeah, I mean, if you get a bad time limit, you get a bad time limit or whatever. But yeah, see, this is a 9x4 New Udra with a 7x5 or a 6x5 Rathalos. And it doesn't bump up the decoration thing entirely, but I'm still getting, what's that going to be, like 6 rewards off of that one, which is more than you normally get off of a 9x5. And Nudra is cut in power twice over by being a 4 strength and having Rathalos in the quest to cut into its health. That's going to be the case with this Arkveld right here. This, honestly, this laggy quest right here is probably going to be easier than this laggy quest right here because I have to deal with laggy less. And it's just going to be a 6 or a 7x4 Dosha in that one. And I get more rewards. Right, okay, so the game didn't fuck that up. So talking about the update does preserve one of the things that makes Wilds really good, which is if you are someone who enjoys fighting around, fighting a whole lot of the different roster, kind of being slightly unguided and going more so by your own hand and doing as you please and wanting a variety in your fights, and not simply going after nothing but a Rathalos plate or a Brachydios gem or an Uragon ruby, and then you fight the same guy in the same map in the same quest 15 times. This is something that Wilds does really well, is it can give you a lot of flavor while still allowing you to be rolling on some of the more optimized tables. And this update preserves that, and it keeps that with the really, really fun, very compelling 9-star fights, and actually makes them a little bit easier with the health cuts, while also expanding on the tables to give you more of the talismans. Can we just be nice to this game, please? I know it came out and it was baby easy and the PC port didn't work. But can we at least be honest about the game and how the mechanics work, for the love of God? I did manage to get angry again. I'm happy I managed to get angry again. So like I said, I recorded this once. I'm like, I don't know if I can, like, legitimately get to that level of passion again. By God in heaven, I did. All right, let's fight her. Because I'm a little bit more used to her because of the AT form. It's also just a 9x4. Actually, you know what we'll kind of stand on business a little bit, and we'll do this. I don't know if I'm going to beat this, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to beat a 9x5 laggy while trying to talk about RNG talismans, but by God, I'll try. I will try. We can talk about... Okay, so we talked about how the quest mechanics are still the way that they're supposed to be. That's good. I would very much like to see some universal buffs, which we might be getting because of the way that Gravi quest looked. That would be awesome. I think that would be really, really cool. Talked about that. We talked about the fact that updates don't necessarily equal stat bloat, and if the 9 stars were in the base game, I think most people would have really, really loved them. Talked about the 9 stars themselves being generally really fun experiences that, though we can have a discussion about whether or not they are, especially in terms of the health department, a little bit higher than they reasonably should be, which I think is not an unfair thing to say. I think the sheer scope of their difficulty has created some quests that are very, very satisfying to complete and have created some experiences that I think are generally really, really fun for how just threatening they can feel, for how they encourage you to get really good with your kit and to learn their moveset particularly well. And I find them to be generally really fun experiences, especially if you are looking to play this game for the sake of challenge, for the sake of enjoying the fights, for the sake of playing the game for the fun of playing the game. I think the 9 stars are really fun, and I do appreciate a lot of the other subtle changes up and down that they have to make... I have so much more fear right now. More compelling kind of difficulty than just pure number go up and number go down. I guess the other thing worth talking about then at this point would just be the talisman system itself. I don't know why. Or the talismans themselves, right? So what we're actually participating in the 9-star quests for. So are those really worth a damn? Is it something that has ruined the state of the game? Has it power crept the game? Me not being a math guy, I can really only go by word of mouth at the moment. And of course, there are tons of different builds and matchups and, you know, elemental zones and hit zones and how certain weapons want to function. So I can really only go off of word of mouth because I have not done all my own math. And I won't make any kind of bold absolutist claim because of that fact. What I have heard, though, is that in many cases, the new talismans aren't really a strict power creep mechanic. They're a little bit more of a side grade. And there's kind of two different ways to look at that. That was played kind of stupid. You realize how fast Laggy is when he can suddenly just kind of chip you to death with everything. Oh, Jesus. So there's kind of a glass half empty and a glass half full kind of way of looking at it, and I think they're both valid. Because if it is true that the RNG talismans are more of a side grade, well then, alright, we got this new, like, damage creep, power creep thing for the monsters. We didn't really get too much power creep for ourselves. So what do I really, like, want to be doing the 9-star stuff for if I'm really, like, not that motivated on a purely kind of min-maxed front? I probably shouldn't have done that. Thank you for idling. Fuck. This is terrifying. At the same time, though, due to the fact that this isn't like a hyper necessarily, like you have to do it. There's also this component of like, well, yeah, all right, the 9 stars are tough, they're tricky, they're difficult, they take a little bit of a while to get through, and at the same time, I'm not necessarily being mandated to just do 9 star, 9 star, 9 star, 9 star over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. There is a semi-optional component to them, where like, I can just kind of, if I really wanted to, I can just kind of do them for fun. Like, the Ardean grind still has its uses, the ticket grind still has its uses, so this doesn't just invalidate every other option and now this is the completely unanimously controlling option. The other content in the game is still viable and still has its elements of being worthwhile. And one thing that I think would definitely help the health of the game is if they can eventually come up with a, not even come up with, because this is something they've had for a while, is just a mechanic to tone investigations up or down. They would probably only do down, but I feel like you could do something where like, oh, I have a 9 star, I want to turn it into an 8 star, and then like what would really be the harm if you then wanted to turn it back into a 9 for the third usage of it. But I think a way to scale investigations down, just to add a little bit more control to it, is like, oh, I have like this Lagiacrus investigation, but at the same time, I'm not really looking for talismans right now. I really want to fight Lagiacrus. Let me just kind of tone it down into a 7, or tone it down into an 8, or tone it down into maybe even like a non-temperate if you really wanted to. And the reason I think that would be really useful is not only are the other quests still semi-viable in their reward pools, but the game also is kind of programmed in a certain way where if you are at a certain HR, it'll kind of track that you're at that HR and like, oh, we're kind of just going to like hyper lock focus you into just this one particular quest difficulty. But at the same time, like, maybe you just want that extra control because that's not specifically what you're looking for in terms of just the content that you want to engage with or the materials that you're going after. So adding a little bit more control, I think, would be definitely something that would be in the game's favor. Can I block and heal, please? Thank you, cat. The other nice thing about the charms and how they work, I was a little nervous when I heard that they were going to have armor skills and armor slots on them. Because it's like, oh, I thought we were kind of like just going in a way where we can get more weapon stuff for build diversity. Because at the moment, the weapon exclusive skills are very difficult to finagle, especially if you're looking for skills that operate specifically off of weapon gimmicks and not necessarily off of stat increases. So things like your focus, your power prolonger, your stuff like that, your focus. I pressed block, you stupid fucking game. Shut up. Right, so yeah, it gets your build diversity better. And I was thinking when this was coming out, that's like, oh, that's a lot of variables to be rolling for. Is this going to be kind of annoying? Well, they statted it out in a certain way where there's a couple of different variables that are rolling kind of just on their own select special tables. So it's not as, it's a little less RNG than I originally thought it was going to be, due to the fact that there's like one select pool of armor rewards, there's of armor skills, there's another select pool of different armor skills, then there's a select pool of weapon skills, and then there's the select pool of your slots. So in terms of like skill allocation, there is some trackable and identifiable way that they are divvied out throughout the talismans that make it so that they're a little less randomized than I thought they fucking could have been. Oh, that's awesome. This is not a fight where I should try to be talking the entire time. And the other neat thing is, the rarity of the talismans, as far as I'm aware, there's some people who have definitely gone more into the numbers than I have, is it really seems like they just open up a couple of additional extra options and also expand in certain places the maximum potential level of some of the skills that you can get. And what that means is that you can still get stuff on Rarity 5 and Rarity 6 Talismans, where you can get a legitimately good and really interesting build-worthy talisman without even getting to, like, the rarest, most high-level talisman drop rates in the game. One of my favorites that I have is a 6-star talisman. That does so much chip, dude. One of my favorites is a 6-star. It gave me 3 points of attack boost and 2 points of evade window on it, and a 2 slots for armor skills. That's, like, really good, especially in a post-Seregios world where we have this expanded form of adrenaline rush. So getting a really easy access to a minor attack multiplier with attack boost 5, which I can get off of one singular 3-slot deco, and then being easily able to work myself into Adrenaline Rush because I already have a baseline of Evade Window 3 built into that. Yeah, no, it was Evade 3, Attack 2. Then I can easily go into filling out the rest of Attack Boost and filling out the rest of Evade Window while going with Seregios' armor set, and then going into Adrenaline Rush, which is pretty easy to get, especially with Seregios' armor. And that was just off of a rare 6, right? That wasn't even a rare 8. Because I know a lot, and that's really fun. I've got a couple of 5s where, like, I could put that on something. I could make something kind of experimental with that 5, just to make kind of like a fun, goofy set to mix around with and see what I wanted to do. I mean, you guys know me at this point. I am not a min-maxer. I'm not a... I was never going to Talisman Chase in this update. So I'm someone who's like, ooh, I got this. What can I make out of this? Turns out some really cool stuff, because that is like my dedicated anti-Seregios build at the moment. And I've been able to use it to drop both 8 Seregioses and 9 Seregioses, which has been really fun. Ugh. I'm not winning this one. I'm not playing well. I should not have gone for that counter. I don't know what it was. I was just kind of like looking for it. It's so hard to get the gun lance counter off of him and not be immediately punished by anything because he's so fucking fast. Maybe this isn't the best weapon. I'm still trying to like figure out what exactly I want to hard pick against Laggy. Is there anything else I want to say about the Talismans? Oh, their buyback rate is pretty generous as well. So not only is there a item that you can get off of the bounties to get a full rack of 10, so that's just like, there you go, there's just 10 talismans for you. That's like a once a week thing, that's kind of nice. At the same time, the Melder buyback rate, pretty generous. So the buyback requirement is only 10 points, which isn't bad. And then a rank 5 talisman is a 1. So you're probably going to be getting a ton of rank 5s. Most of them probably aren't going to be worth much of anything. So you can just throw a ton of those in the vat. If you get an 8-star, that's just a fully reciprocated talisman. Just back fully for free, which is also pretty cool. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get an 8 back, but you are guaranteed to just get a full talisman back if you get an 8 that's not that great. So it's not an awesome feeling if you get an 8 that sucks, but at the same time, you just get a free talisman back. If you were, I had to get rid of the recording because there was no audio over it, but I did trash an 8 that wasn't particularly good because it had peak performance on it, and Lord knows nobody's ever run peak performance on anything, and like intended to. And I got something that was like full water attack, some rapid morph, and like, no, it was one water attack, one rapid morph, and full blast resistance. So I'm like, I could turn that into an anti-Ajaricon set. Am I going to? Sure, fuck it, why not? That sounds fun. So it's interesting, the Talisman system has been both a little bit more and a little bit less giving than I thought it was going to. The buyback rate is really nice. Again, like, I think like a 7 is 6 points into it, so if you get a mid-7, you don't even need 2 full 7s to get another Talisman back. So that is nice. Didn't even get a single pop. That's lovely. I don't know if there's anything else to really discuss with the Talismans. I do wonder if they're going to change how they work at some point and like maybe add more skills into them or make some higher level versions of them at some point. Because we do know... Did they change up his underwater combo? That's fucking insidious. Yeah. I can't see. Come here. Come here. Good boy. You fucking idiot. Oh, he's right up against the rebar. And go. Fuck yourself. Nice. I don't like that combo. I don't like that combo at all. I had that motherfucker dead to rights. Piece of shit. Alright. On that note, is there anything else worth talking about? I guess we could do like a final summation if the full thing was too rambly or something. Let's see. Alright. 9-star monsters. Very, very fun. Maybe a little healthier than they need to be. That's a legitimate argument. But still very fun. Good challenge. Forces you to learn your weapons, forces you to learn the movesets, changed up in some interesting ways, some minor combo extensions, some interesting changes to certain resistances, including the traps and flash bods, as well as the wound system. The wound system itself is just kind of being finagled and teased around. I feel like they are particularly comfortable with it. It's gone from a mechanic that was really hurting the game to one that I think has been decently implemented. I'm glad that 8-star quests are still viable and important. I'm glad that mid-level monsters are still viable and important. They did not mess that up, despite what some people who don't understand this video game say. I have been very much compelled by the challenge that these games provide. I think we're in probably the most difficult high rank that they've ever made, and there is a lot of fun to that as someone who does appreciate the challenge aspect of Monster Hunter. The charms by themselves, you can get some really fun stuff without even needing to get the best level charms in the game, which is fun. They are been very good for build diversity, which has been great. They've really expanded out some of the skills that are actually worth using in this game. I haven't licked attack boost one way or the other until this update came out, and now it's on one of my favorite builds that I have. The buyback for them is pretty generous. They are statted in such a way that their RNG spread is more controlled than I thought they were going to be. I am interested if they're going to expand on them. I don't think they're perfect or anything, but I don't think they really hurt the game at all either. I do appreciate to some extent that they are a little bit more of a side grade while just being more interesting for certain builds and making certain weapons a little bit more fun to play. It just makes the game overall more interesting from a theory crafting perspective. I totally understand some people who are a little bit more strict direction oriented or just like it's another bout of just rolling on big generalized tables. On the other hand, rolling on the big generalized tables I think is really good for the diversity of gameplay in this game. Comes down to a little bit of luck, but at the same time, sometimes you don't even really need the luck on your side to get some very interesting and compelling and entertaining talismans. You can get some fun stuff off of just your 5s and your 6s. Honestly, I've been more interested on some of the stuff I've been getting off of my 6s than I have off of my 7s and my 8s, by my personal experience. I know that technically speaking, at the top level, I can get really good stuff off of my 8s, but I've been satisfied with some of my rolls on the lower end, and I think that is a strength of this system, for sure. That I can have some really good skill synergy with some stuff that I can struggle to plug in otherwise, and I don't even need to get the god rolls to do it. I think that is really interesting for someone like me who likes to theory craft and just cobble together a whole bunch of stuff, doesn't necessarily math things out, but enjoys making his builds that are good enough and suitable enough, and put the weapons in the monster fights into positions where they are a lot of fun for me and very satisfying. I enjoy the theory crafting and not so much the mathematics of set making in Monster Hunter considerably, and this update I think has been really, really good in that sense. While also not power creeping the game too much, that if you are someone who does min-max and who does speedrun, it doesn't sound like if you're doing much of any chasing, it's that dramatic, which is nice. I think that's all I really wanted to cover. There's some messiness, for sure. It's another batch, it's the third batch of RNG tables to be rolling on, and that does look like a lot, despite the fact that there are some grinds that have more merciless drop rates. There are other grinds that have less control. There are other ones that are just less satisfying or less diverse and whatnot. It's not to say that this is perfect. I don't think you're ever going to get a system quite like this that's going to be mechanically incentive towards gameplay diversity, and at the same time, it'll please everybody. But I think they have done some good mathing here to create a system that is compelling and fun, not overly power crept, and makes things worthwhile, while also maintaining one of the major strengths of Wilds as a whole, that being the versatility of its roster and how they maintain the mechanical viability of basically the entire roster. All right, Editing Connor is coming back in for a second. I do have a lot to say about the specifics of the Talisman system that was just introduced, and on the whole, I've been mostly going over the things that I like about the specifics of this system and why I think there's some good design elements in there and whatnot. At the same time, though, and this is something I don't really lean into or discuss that much in the original recording, so I'm going to go into it more so here, is I totally get why, on a principle level, even with the benefits and the solid design that is there, there's going to be people who are off-put by this. That being that this is the third big, open, generalized RNG table. Now, again, for myself personally, who's very kind of let's just take it and roll with it and just enjoy the game and enjoy the ride, things like this are not really going to hit me, but I do very much feel for people who are big into speedrunning, big into min-maxing, big into the mathematics, big into kind of finding a set destination with their builds and working towards that very defined goal. And for all the strengths and pros that the more generalized reward tables can bring, they do really spread out the top level rewards and materials in a way that makes precise destination farming a bit of a hassle. And in Wild specifically, though there's a lot of forgiveness and good buyback and a lot of pretty evenly well spread out rates for most of what you're going to be looking for, and with just some time and dedication, you're probably going to get everything you're going for without a ton of effort. But this is a little bit more leaving things up to the hands of luck, and in going for some specific rewards, there isn't a lot of control options. Now, maybe that'll change in the future, and if it does, that would be great, to just kind of redirect specific roles in a certain way. That would be nice. And the other thing is, with Wilds, we now have 3 of these, right? We have the Ardian weapons, we have the decorations, and we have the charms. And all individually, again, I don't really hate... Ardians aren't great. They're... Nah. They're not fantastic. I think they're probably, if we had to axe one of them, I think we could just kind of get rid of Ardian systems in the future or something like that. But we now have these 3 big chunks of generalized RNG-oriented rewards tables, and for anyone who really gives a crap about the math, that has to be annoying. That has to be off-putting. That has to be just, well, I gotta cross my fingers and hope the luck is good, because as much as I don't have a huge attachment to, say, you know, Rathalos plate drops being at 5% and farming the Rathalos over and over and over again, at least that pool is very narrow, and it's very controlled and stuff like that. I think it really kind of more comes down, not so much to good game design, bad game design, but it does come down to personal priorities, what you and I as individuals are looking to get out of Monster Hunter, what we're kind of aiming for, and then each differing kind of system has more so pros and cons. You know, I have a lot of praise for the specifics of how Wilds handles having all of these different tables, and it does also kind of make the game a little bit more complex, because there is a lot less that needs to be done and accounted for if you're really just rolling for one rare drop or specific part breaks on specific monsters. So I get it. I really, really do. And I don't want to disparage anyone who's like, dude, this is just a lot of coin flipping. I totally, totally get it. And I don't think I'm going to personally be able to get on that position with you where like, yeah, this bugs me too. But I get it. And I wish the game was less annoying and less frustrating for those kinds of people. All right, so we're going to just wrap up the video from here. Did want to add in that thing because I figure some people are still going to point out in the comments is like, yeah, that's all nice and good and whatnot, but it's still annoying. And I want to just let you know, I totally see ya. I totally, totally get it. And I don't think you're being a curmudgeon or unfun or whatever for having some hangups for not loving that style of reward and grinding. So just wanted to add this in there to get that across. All right, let's finish up the video. Yeah. All right. Yeah, no, I like this update. I like it quite a bit. I like that it came out by itself and it's not part of TU3, or at least like the base launch of TU3, and it is time to just kind of sit there and breathe by itself and be its own thing. I've seen that it's been fairly healthy for people playing the game. I'm glad that they're still working on the optimization and all that. I know that I'm going to get a couple of comments like, too bad the game still run bad though. That's not what we're talking about. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, you've been saying that in every comment thread ever for the last couple of months. I know. Just buy a console, dude. It's cheaper. Alright, I think this has been CR-Volcanic or Connor. Let me know what you think down below. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.